everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a review of the series finale of The Flash, titled A New World Part 4. Now there will be spoilers throughout, so just beware when going into this overall video, and you can check out my coverage of previous seasons of the show, and I'll leave some links within the description. So quickly then, just to recap on the events of the previous episode, where we saw the version of Eddie Thawne gaining possession of the Cobalt Crystal, very much accepting its power, and it seems opening up a portal to revive the show's previous speedster villains with the likes of Reverse Flash, Zoom, Godspeed, and Savitar. So after a long run of seasons, which began way back in October 2014, was this episode a worthy conclusion not only to the show, but also now to the era of the Arrowverse as we've come to know it for many, many years? Well, for me, the most positive thing I could say was that this was a very functional finale, doing all of the standard finale things, in terms of certain big battles and spectacle, a bit of drama, some emotional farewells and goodbyes and reunions, and then the overall final scene. And it ticked off these boxes with a certain intention and sincerity, but unfortunately everything was just so rushed and overblown and disposable. It carried such little weight and emotion as what we really should have got from an episode tying off this long running series. Much like this season, or perhaps the last couple of seasons, this finale for me just left you feeling very shortchanged and very much underwhelmed. The show itself, although it's been in decline for the last couple of years, deserved far more than what we got throughout this particular episode. Now there will be certain other creators that will produce far more in-depth breakdowns and analysis of this finale, but I've got to be honest, it really wasn't a lot to talk about here. And to add further context, I've primarily stuck with this show out of obligation since I've been watching it way back when it started, but it has been hard struggling to stay with it, especially this season, and I've been checked out multiple times throughout the various story arcs that they've been trying to tell. And in terms of this finale here, the plot is essentially a big drawn out fight against all of the villainous speedsters and members of Team Flash. And this is when they really undercut the credibility of all of these antagonists. When they were initially introduced to the show in their respective seasons, in the beginning at least, they came across with a real threat and fervor and menace, particularly when we look at the likes of Zoom. But seeing them here beaten so easily by other members of Team Flash, whether it was Cecile beating Godspeed, or Keone beating Zoom, or Nora beating Savitar, it really felt a bit of an insult really if you are a long passion fan of the show to see these powerful villains just thrown in there last minute, and it barely felt worth the exercise. We then had a fake out scene where we saw Thawne for some reason travelling over to kill Chester, but then he's revived later on. And then we had a final face off between Barry and Eddie, who was now in a transformed Cobalt Blue costume, and I'm sorry, it looked absolutely ridiculous, very much a B grade Power Ranger look that he had here. And it seemed at this point that the showrunners had seemingly just run out of budget, as Barry and Eddie come to some sort of sudden resolution, agreeing to finally work together, and that's it. Crisis done, negative forces dispelled, and we end up happily ever after. Now some people will point to the fact that they've only had 13 episodes this season as to the normal 22 that what we had, especially in the pre-pandemic era. But it's still 13 episodes, of which each episode has a runtime of around 39 to 40 minutes. So that's more than a substantial amount of time to build up a real substantial threat and a big epic storyline to conclude this series on. And this finale sadly didn't do it. I'll probably talk about this at length in another video, but the amount of times throughout this season that we've wasted so much time, especially with the supporting characters of Team Flash, without really having much screen time for Barry himself. And poor Candice Patton as Iris, just saddled with being heavily pregnant, just sat on the sidelines once more. Yet again, a further example of how they've massively underutilized the character. And so then we wrap everything up. We have the necessary send-offs and goodbyes, as I mentioned before. We see Caitlin revived back to life as Keone has to go away now and be the protector of some wider universe, whatever that meant. Again, it just further validated how stupid it was to kill off Caitlin, an OG character, and also Killer Frost, have them transformed as Keone. They could have easily just kept either Caitlin or Killer Frost. And then we see everybody arriving at the party, Mary J. Blige music playing in the background. We see Joe finally proposing to Cecile. We certainly hint at Chilblain and Caitlin getting together. We see Chester and Allegra back together once more. And of course we have Iris finally giving birth. And that was it, essentially then the end of the story. And then we had the final scene, a ridiculous run of events in my personal opinion, where for some reason Barry feels the need to run outside and basically transfer his powers to certain individuals. Now, I've got no idea who these characters were. I assume they were previous characters from previous seasons. Again, as I mentioned before, I've been checked out a lot and struggling to stay with the show. I'm not sure whether they were important characters within the comic book source material, but in the end, he transfers his lightning to 3 different characters in different locations, and then we see him and Iris lying together as he runs forward iconically again throughout the streets in his Flash costume. And that was it. So as I mentioned before, it was certainly well intended in terms of having a big action and spectacle and then trying to round off the character arcs and give a fully closed out storyline. But again, I think it was a symptom of a very bad season. In fact, season 9 has probably been one of the worst of the entire series. And in many ways, the season finale is impacted by how bad the season is. So depending on where you are, maybe you're a hardcore fan of the show and you were just satisfied to see all of these characters come to some sort of happy resolution. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But I just think overall, when I look at this finale, it could have been so much more, and it should have been so much more. As I mentioned before, they had more than enough episodes. They knew going in that this would be the final season. It's not as if it was cancelled halfway through where they were already setting up plans for a 10th season. So they knew exactly what they had to do and a destination point that they had to reach. And to come up with something so, again, underwhelming and rushed really isn't something that was truly deserving of the long-running series itself. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings on the series finale of The Flash. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I will be shortly uploading a more overall review of the entire series of the show, so look out for that in the future within the channel. And if you have any other subjects regarding any other movies, television series, or any other topics within the entertainment and pop culture scene that you'd like to see me cover, then also let me know within the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.